The sun hung heavy in the sky, casting long shadows across the deserted road where Toby stood, heart racing. His family, once so familiar, had abandoned him, leaving him alone in an unfamiliar place. The car had slowed, and just as Toby leapt from the back seat, eager for another adventure, it sped away, leaving him in the dust. The door had slammed shut behind him, the tires screeching as they drove off, leaving Toby barking helplessly in their wake. His tail, which had once wagged eagerly at every trip, now hung low between his legs. His heart, confused and broken, struggled to grasp what had just happened. He chased the car until exhaustion claimed him, finally collapsing at the side of the road. As the vehicle disappeared over the horizon, Toby realized with crushing certainty, he was alone. Toby's world had shattered in an instant. The road stretched before him, empty and endless, with nothing familiar in sight. The scorching heat of the summer sun beat down on him, but there was no shelter, no comfort to ease his growing sense of abandonment. The wind stirred the dust, but it felt like nothing more than a reminder of the oppressive loneliness that weighed heavily on him. Determined, Toby began walking, driven by one goal: to find his family. The scent of their car lingered faintly in the air, a lifeline in a sea of unfamiliarity. At first, he moved confidently, believing he would catch up with them soon. But as the hours were on and the sun climbed higher in the sky, the harsh reality set in. No matter how hard he tried, Toby couldn't find his way back to them. The road seemed endless, and hunger gnawed at his stomach while thirst dried his tongue. There was no sign of his family, no trace of the love he had once known. As night fell, the temperature dropped, and the harsh, cold air intensified his sense of isolation. Every sound around him seemed to mock his suffering: the rustling of insects, the distant calls of animals he could never understand. But even as exhaustion threatened to overpower him, Toby pressed on. His paws were heavy, his body trembling with fatigue, yet his determination burned brighter than ever. He couldn't give up now, not when he had come so far, not when the memory of his family was still fresh in his heart. He walked until he could walk no more, finally collapsing under the shelter of an old, lonely tree. In his dreams, he heard the voices of his family, the laughter of the children, the warmth of hands stroking his fur. It was enough to keep him moving, one step after another, despite the deep physical and emotional toll it was taking on him. Days turned into weeks, and Toby's journey became a battle for survival. He drank from streams, scavenged for food, and endured the burning heat of the day and the biting cold of the night. But nothing was more dangerous than the coyotes that surrounded him one fateful night. Their glowing eyes and bared teeth paralyzed him with fear, but Toby, in an act of sheer courage, defended himself and chased them off. The encounter left him shaken, but he pushed forward, his desire to find his family pushing him beyond the limits of his body. The road was relentless, and yet Toby never wavered. He had one purpose, and nothing could stop him. One evening, as a storm rolled in, Toby stumbled upon a small, abandoned cabin. Grateful for any form of shelter, he entered and lay down to rest. For the first time in days, his body found solace, even if just for a few hours. As he slept, dreams of home filled his mind, offering a fleeting comfort. When morning came, Toby's resolve was stronger than ever. His body was weary, but his heart was full of hope. He knew that each step was bringing him closer to his family. Oh, the life he had known, to the love that had always been there for him. Days passed, and the weather grew more unpredictable. Dark clouds loomed on the horizon, and thunder rumbled in the distance. Toby quickened his pace, desperate to find shelter before the storm unleashed its fury. But the storm came faster than he anticipated, soaking him to the bone and forcing him to fight against the fierce wind and rain. Every step was a challenge, yet Toby pressed on, driven by memories of his family. He could feel their presence in every flash of lightning, in every rumble of thunder. With the final burst of strength, Toby reached an old wooden bridge that offered him brief refuge from the storm. Though drenched and exhausted, he found a moment of peace under the shelter of the bridge. Finally, as the storm began to clear, Toby reached the edge of the familiar neighborhood. His heart raced as he descended the hill, the scent of home growing stronger with each step. The white fence that once surrounded his yard loomed ahead, and Toby's heart swelled with hope. He was close, so close, But when he reached the front gate, something felt wrong. The grass was overgrown, the garden neglected, and the house, once full of life, stood silent. Toby hesitated, uncertainty creeping in. Was this still home? Had his family truly moved on? Determined, Toby made his way to the back door, his mind a whirlwind of emotions. And then he heard it, the faintest sound, a faint splash of water. Without hesitation, Toby raced to the pool where he found the baby, struggling to stay afloat. Without a second thought, he leapt into the pool, ignoring the cold and his exhaustion. Each stroke was a battle, but nothing would stop him from saving the life he so loved. Toby reached the baby, pulled it to safety, and collapsed beside it, his body trembling with the last remnants of strength. His heart was full, knowing he had saved the child. As the parents arrived, stunned by the sight of Toby, they quickly realized the enormity of his sacrifice. Tears filled their eyes as they hugged the baby and turned to Toby, overwhelmed by gratitude and guilt. "You saved us," the father whispered through tears, stroking Toby's wet fur. The mother echoed the sentiment, her voice thick with emotion. The family, once broken by their abandonment of Toby, now realized the depth of his love and the sacrifice he had made. Toby, exhausted and frail, lay quietly at their feet, the embodiment of loyalty and love. The following days were filled with healing. The parents, overwhelmed by their mistake, showered Toby with affection, making up for the time lost. They walked together, played together, and most importantly, learned to appreciate the gift of Toby's unwavering love. The house, once silent, was now alive with laughter, joy, and a renewed sense of gratitude. Toby, who had endured so much to return home, was finally where he belonged. And as he lay beside the children, watching them play, Toby knew that he was home forever. Toby's story is one of loyalty, sacrifice, and redemption. It reminds us that love isn't conditional on circumstances, and true loyalty doesn't depend on how we are treated. Toby forgave without hesitation, and through his forgiveness, his family found healing and a renewed appreciation for the love they had once taken for granted. His journey teaches us that no matter how hard life gets, it's always worth fighting for the ones we love.